I'm Jean Béliveau. I had the privilege of playing with the Montreal Canadiens for 18 seasons. In 5 of those years, from 1956 to 1960, the Canadiens did what no other team has ever done. We won 5 straight Stanley Cup. We had many outstanding players. In fact, 10 of them are now in the Hall of Fame, and most of their names will be familiar to you. Maurice Richard, Doug Harvey, Jacques Plante, Dickie Moore, Boom Boom Geoffrion, to name a few. In 1956, we also had a new coach. Hector Toblake took over from Dick Irvin, and none of us really knew what to expect from Toe. And we had the rookie named Henry Richard, Maurice's younger brother, destined to become a great superstar. In 1955, we lost in 7 games to Detroit in the finals, and we really wanted another chance to prove we could beat them. I hope you enjoy the highlights of the 1956 playoffs, narrated by the late Tom Foley, the first of our 5 straight cups.
This is Tom Foley inviting you to sit at the rink side and watch action in the fastest game in the world. You are now sharing in the excitement of one of the 1956 National Hockey League semi-final games between Montreal Canadiens in the dark sweaters and New York Rangers. These playoffs are the climax of the 1955-56 season, the year that the turbulent Phil Watson, a former Ranger and Canadian star, in his first year of NHL coaching, led Rangers into the playoffs for the first time in 6 years. The year that ended the Detroit Red Wings' domination. Detroit had finished first for 7 consecutive seasons. The 1955-56 year belonged to the Montreal Canadiens. It was the year of the feared Montreal power play and the biggest box office season in NHL history. The crowd-pleasing, hard-skating, smooth-passing Canadiens lost only 15 games in 70 league starts. They finished first to win the Prince of Wales trophy. It was a well-balanced league. During this season, Chicago Blackhawks, rebuilding under general manager Tommy Ivan, displayed greater strength. But in this highly competitive league, even with an improved team, they still couldn't climb out of the league cellar. The Boston Bruins under coach Milt Schmidt, after a promising start, were handicapped in mid-season by a dismaying list of injuries. But Bruins fought to the very final night of the league schedule before losing out to Toronto Maple Leafs by only 2 points in the fierce struggle for the 4th and final playoff berth. Nothing could be taken for granted in the playoffs either. Montreal trounced Rangers 7-1 in the first game. In the second, played right in Montreal. The New York Rangers, using Gordie Bell, a minor league goaltender, upset the Montrealers 4-2 to square the series. Then in New York, the mighty Canadiens, now seen in their road white sweaters, defeated the Rangers 2 straight. Returning to their own ice, Montreal, with an overwhelming display of power, ran up a 7-0 score to win the series 4-1 and advance into the final round. The other semifinal was between Detroit Red Wings, shown here in the white uniforms, and Toronto Maple Leafs. The rough and tough slam-bang Maple Leafs consistently took the lead against the defending champion Red Wings, but consistently lost out. The young Leafs just made the playoffs in this NHL season, which saw a league more closely balanced than at any time in the past decade. It was also a year in which the hockey fans saw more clean-cut plays featuring individual brilliance. Tighter interpretation of the rules gave the hockey star a greater chance to dominate. It meant fewer scrambles and the accent on freewheeling attack. Skill meant more than size. Several smaller rookies broke in and made good, like Montreal's Henri Richard, Chicago's Hec Lalonde, and Dick Duff of Toronto. This semifinal Detroit-Toronto series was to be King Clancy's last as a coach. He was later boosted to the position of Toronto's assistant general manager. Howie Meeker succeeded him as Maple Leaf coach. In his final coaching appearance, Clancy saw the Leafs lose 3 close ones in a row, rally to shut out Detroit 2-0, and then lose the 5th game 3-1, which gave Detroit the series 4-1. And so it meant these teams were meeting for the 4th time in the past 5 years in Stanley Cup play, Montreal versus Detroit. The 1956 series opened in Montreal, in the hockey home of the Canadiens, the Montreal Forum. Ready for action is this Detroit trio that scored 63 goals in league play. Metro Pristay on the left, center Alex Delvecchio, who was the league's 9th highest point getter, and Lorne Ferguson, obtained from Boston in a mid-season deal. And Detroit coach Jimmy Skinner, practically a hockey stranger when he took over the Wings in the fall of '55, now trying for his second straight Stanley Cup. Montreal coach Toe Blake was one of the greatest Canadiens of all time, an NHL star for 13 seasons, but a rookie in NHL coaching ranks. Blake looked to goalie Jacques Plante with defenseman Tom Johnson and Jean-Guy Talbot to help make him a Stanley Cup winner in his first season. Tension mounts in the crowded Montreal Forum as the 1956 Stanley Cup Final is about to get underway. Centermen are Henri Richard of Montreal, Delvecchio of Detroit, Jack Mellenbach of the referee, Canadien in the dark sweaters. The 1956 Stanley Cup Championship play has started. The Canadiens are the favorites, but for the previous 7 years, the National Hockey League had been dominated by Detroit Red Wings, who had finished first in all 7 of those seasons and won the Stanley Cup 4 times. Their payoff men had been Gordie Howe and Ted Lindsay, Red Kelly, a consistent all-star on defense, Bob Goldham, an inspirational leader. For 5 seasons, the league's most feared netminder in playoff action had been Terry Sawchuk, and before him, Harry Lumley. Now the Red Wings face the Montreal Challenge with Howe and Lindsay still leading their attack, Kelly and Goldham still their key defensemen, and a new brilliant rookie, Glenn Hall, in the nets. Montreal had finished first in regular league play, but every hockey fan wondered whether these challenging Canadiens would be able to overcome the defending champion Red Wings in the intense playoff pressure. The first game was high-scoring. Detroit led twice on goals by Delvecchio and Dineen. Montreal twice tied it on goals by Beliveau and Richard. With 8 minutes gone in the second period, it was 2-all, and the slow-motion camera shows the old firm of Lindsay passing to Howe, and Howe, 4 times NHL scoring champion in 5 years, returning it. Lindsay scores from right in. It's 3-2 Detroit as the Red Wings take the lead for the 3rd straight time. Now a rush by Jackie Leclerc across the blue line. A hard shot, but Hall saves. The return rush by Detroit, but on the play, Canadian Tom Johnson draws a penalty. The Detroit power play. Howe across to Ferguson. Delvecchio at the goal mouth scores, and Detroit has a big 4-2 lead. The teams are in the 3rd period. Less than 15 minutes to go. In playoff hockey, a 2-goal lead at this stage is considered almost insurmountable. Red Wings have a great chance to win the opening game on Montreal ice. But here's Curry in the corner. Montreal power on the move. Out to Turner, who passes across to Harvey. Into Curry. His rebound. Leclerc scores, and the Detroit lead is cut to 4-3. Less than 14 minutes to play. Red Wings attacking. Talbot intercepts. Up to Geoffrion. Montreal moving in back to Talbot. Closely checked. Geoffrion with a backhand shot. And that puck bouncing behind Hall means the hockey game is tied at 4-all. That's 2 Montreal goals in only 60 seconds. Canadiens keep right on driving. Geoffrion's shot is stopped by Hall. It's in front of Beliveau, who scores, and the surging Canadiens have scored 3 goals in 2 minutes and 11 seconds to lead 5-4. As time runs out, Montreal goes on to complete one of the most thrilling comebacks in Stanley Cup history. Canadiens continue to hold the puck in the Detroit zone. A nightmarish 3rd period for the Red Wings continues. The Montrealers keep them disorganized. And finally, a puck that has bounced around the Detroit corner for nearly half a minute is passed to Floyd Curry, who is checked out of the play. The puck deflects in front of the net, and Provo gets a clinching goal. Scoring 4 times in the final period, wiping out a 4-2 Detroit lead. Montreal Canadiens win the opening game 6-4. So the 3rd game is underway. And after 14 minutes of play, with Montreal shorthanded, Red Kelly of the Red Wings carries the puck out of his own zone. Over to Howe. Kelly gets it back, completes a thrilling end-to-end play by driving the puck between Plant's legs to give Detroit the lead. More action in the Montreal zone as the determined Red Wings force the play. Some rough checking between Olmsted and Rival. It breaks out into a fight. There are no knockdowns as they settle for wrestling, and both are penalized after the officials break it up. Playing 5 aside means more room for Beliveau. 6'3", 205 pounds, moving in and drills it home to tie the score. The Beliveau magic in slow motion. The big, graceful center shifts his way neatly around Goldem and Pronovo, and with remarkable accuracy, his shot is just inside the post. In the second period, Ted Lindsay, number 7 for Detroit, fails to score. Rocket Reshore interferes with Howe, and Reshore draws a penalty. Trying to take advantage of it, the potent Gordie Howe, chased to a sharp angle, still forces Plant to come up with a good save. It's the third period, and the score remains tied. Montreal attacking, but Hall clears. Canadiens trying to hold it in the Detroit zone. Arbor checks Beliveau as the Red Wings pay particular attention to the NHL scoring champion, and Pavelich carries out for Detroit. Up the ice with Lindsay. A shot and a rebound to Lindsay, who scores to give Detroit the lead. That important Detroit goal in slow motion. There's the Pavelich shot, and Lindsay slaps the rebound between Plant's legs. Detroit now leads 2-1 late in the third period, but they led the first game by 2 goals and still lost. Gordie Howe, out of his own zone, sweeps wide, around Harvey, a perfect shot. Detroit wins 3-1 and cuts Montreal's series lead to 2-1. Watch Howe's skillful play in slow motion. Harvey partially blocks him. Howe's low drive just inside the post. Montreal scored 222 goals during the season's 70 games. 7th among NHL point getters was Bernie Boom Boom Geoffrion in the center, who scored 29. On the far right, 4th on the NHL list, Bert Olmsted, whose 56 assists set a new all-time record. And on the left, hockey's man of the year, Jean Beliveau. Winner of the Hart Trophy as the player most valuable to his team. Winner of the Art Ross Trophy as the league's top point getter. 47 goals and 41 assists. The number 1 all-star center. And in the playoffs, he tied an all-time record. He scored a goal in every playoff game but one. It had been suggested that the daring and acrobatic netminder Jacques Plante would be a Montreal weak spot. But when the season ended, he had won the goaltender's Vezina Trophy with an average of only 1.8 goals scored against him per game. Montreal's power was not confined to the big-name stars. Left to right, Floyd Curry, 32 points. Ken Mosdell, 30. Jackie Leclerc, 14. And Claude Provo, a rookie who scored 3 important playoff goals. Game number 4. Detroit on their own ice, trying to even up the series before it moves back to Montreal. Canadiens are leading 2-1. The jammed Olympia crowd knows this will be the most important game of the series, because if Red Wings can't stop that Montreal power on Detroit ice, it will be next to impossible to stop it before the rabid Montreal customers. In a close, tough playoff series, one break can mean a hockey game. Rival NHL coaches have learned that to beat Montreal, you must stop their power play. That means defensive specialists. This game's first break goes against the Wings. Mitro Pristai, an effective Detroit penalty killer, is hit by a high stick and sidelined for the balance of the series. The ever-dangerous Maurice Richard on the attack, but hit hard by Bob Goldem, who was another NHL veteran to retire following this series. Now watch the 2 players wearing number 16, 20-year-old Henri Richard of Montreal and 20-year-old Norm Ullman of Detroit. They collide and start throwing punches as playoff pressure and rough play combine to shorten young tempers. It's still scoreless, and the first goal means so much in playoff hockey. Here it comes. Canadian Bert Olmsted, number 15 in the corner. Out to the blue line, a drive by Harvey, and Beliveau on the rebound scores to give Montreal a 1-0 lead.
On Sports Century, it's Indy 500 week, profiling another Indy legend each night.
Racing is their life.
Get ready for this year's big race with Sports Century, starting at 8 Eastern, Monday on ESPN Classic.
What happens when an undercover cop hits the surf to take down a ring of bank robbers? He takes his job to the extreme. Keanu Reeves in Point Break on Real Classics with Burt Reynolds, 8 Eastern tonight, only on ESPN Classic.
School because I was hanging with the wrong crowd. And one day I was put into juvie for 2 stolen cars, robbery of a house, and aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. And I was locked up. That's when I really realized that, I mean, it wasn't for me. Like, I was only in there 2 months, but to me that was enough. It'd be better for me to stay in school, just get my education. I think I'm happier now. I know I'm happier now.
With On Demand from Comcast Digital Cable, you get a library of over 1,000 movies and shows. And if you also have HBO, you now get HBO On Demand. So you can choose from over 100 HBO programs that you can start whenever you're ready. It's like having a free HBO library right inside your TV. And you can't get HBO On Demand with satellite. It's on Comcast Digital Cable. TV is now on your terms.
Second period, Detroit in trouble. Kelly passes to Rybo. An important save by Plante. Keep your eyes on the right skate of Henri Richaud, Montreal's number 16. How would you call this one? As the rocket misses, a rebound, and Dickie Moore bats it past Hall. But referee Jack Mellenbacher disallows the goal. The Montrealers protest in force. That action in slow motion. Maurice Richaud around Bob Goldham. A good shot, but Hall saves. Canadiens still on the doorstep. Henri Richaud and Moore in close. But the goal is disallowed. The referee ruling Henri Richaud's right skate was in the goal crease. Well, what do you think? The controversial decision did not affect the outcome. Montreal's hard-shooting Bernie Geoffrion leads the rush. A shot by Olmsted, and on the rebound, Beliveau gets the most important goal of the series as it sends Canadiens into a commanding 2-0 lead. From here on, it's a story of a new hockey champion being crowned. Some hockey strategists say you should stick to defensive hockey in the playoffs, but not Canadiens, even when they're in the lead. Continuing the attack in the third period, Claude Provo to Curry, and his goal makes it 3-0. Slow motion shows how Provo passes neatly around Bob Goldham, and Curry scores just before being checked heavily by Gordie Howe. A check that was certainly not too little, but decidedly too late. Anytime a hockey team wins a game, particularly a playoff game on the opponent's ice, it's a major accomplishment. To win by a shutout is remarkable. Final score, Montreal 3, Detroit 0. And so the series moves back across the border from Detroit to Montreal. Canadiens leading 3-1. In the Montreal Forum, 35-year-old Butch Bouchard, a veteran of 15 years of NHL play, is in his Canadian uniform for his final game before retiring. On the left, Dollard Saint-Laurent. And the puck is faced. Montreal just one game away from the prize Stanley Cup. The defending champion Detroit Red Wings facing elimination. One of the game's fiercest competitors, Ted Lindsay, a Detroit spark plug for the past 12 seasons, gets a good shot on Plante. And at the other end of the ice, Maurice Richaud to Harvey, and Hall turns it aside. Two rockets are better than one. The reshore Brother Rack, pocket rocket to Brother Rocket, and the save by Hall. Playoff pressure is greatest on the netminders, even when they're sitting down on the job. This second period save by Plant may have changed the course of this hockey game, as Ted Lindsay has an excellent scoring chance, a hard shot, but Plant's save maintains the scoreless deadlock. Another important play that turned the hockey tide. A rush by Turner. Reshore pulled down by Pronovo, who gets a penalty. This is what Montreal, players and fans alike, has been waiting for. The five-strong force of their power play. Harvey to Curry to Beliveau, who scores his 12th playoff goal. See it in slow motion. Curry's perfect pass. Belivau's perfect shot. Montreal has that first goal, but Detroit's cause is still not lost, and Hall saves off Geoffrion. Canadian driving for the clincher. Pronovo still in the penalty box. 5 Montrealers close in. A backhand shot by Geoffrion. Hall saves that one, but it's still not cleared. A scramble for the puck. Reshore and Beliveau both in front. The Rocket gains control, gets a shot, and scores another power play goal.
For the best protection against...
It's the third period now. Montreal less than 20 minutes away from the world's title. Beliveau attacking with Geoffrion, who scores on the rebound, and now it's 3-0. But there's no such word as quit in the hard-driving play of the National Hockey League. Detroit's number 10, Alex Delvecchio, with a powerful burst of speed in to score for the Red Wings. In slow motion, watch Delvecchio's bullet shot as it sails in, just missing the outstretched glove of Jacques Plante. Even with a 3-1 lead and the Stanley Cup minutes away, the Montreal Canadiens continue to attack right to the final seconds of the 1955-56 season. Gordie Howe drives in for the desperate Wings, and Plante saves. Red Wings, their title slipping away, still fighting. Ted Lindsay gets a Detroit breakaway, but again is stopped by Jacques Plante. 3 seconds to go. The final play of the 1956 Stanley Cup Championship. Montreal Canadiens are the hockey champions of the world. The players from 2 of the finest teams in history shake hands. In the 1955-56 season, every trophy and every all-star position but one was claimed by members of the Detroit Red Wings and Montreal Canadiens. Toe Blake, the rookie coach, is hoisted high on the shoulders of jubilant players. Last year, another rookie coach won the Stanley Cup, Detroit's Jimmy Skinner. But in 1956, the sports pendulum swung to Montreal, to Blake, Plante, Beliveau, Harvey, and the entire Montreal Canadiens organization. The Stanley Cup was officially presented to Canadiens by a former great NHL referee and senior Stanley Cup trustee, Cooper Smeaton. For Montreal, the season ends in jubilation. But 1955-56 provided 225 games of the finest in sports excitement in Detroit, Toronto, Boston, Chicago, and New York, as well as in Montreal. So ends the 1956 final. But in a new season, the 6 teams will once again present thrills, speed and excitement, and the ultimate in hockey skill in another quest for that historic and famous sports prize, Hockey's Stanley Cup.